He can't legally marry all three. However, he can create contracts legally with all three of them if that's the direction he chose to, right? Because unfortunately, in this country at this moment, we do not have a law where you can marry multiple women, you know, and that's another conversation for another night. But me understanding this is that that's not the most ideal situation for most people, and most people can't really create that kind of family dynamic, right? I think there is a cultural mindset and a sort of upbringing and teaching that is fostered around responsibility, duty for a man to be in that kind of relationship dynamic. And I just don't think that a lot of men or black men have been cultured in that kind of particular way, because it's not really all based on foundational money. Money's good, but principles, value systems. I keep going back to these things because they're the glue that which holds a lot of families together. Killer Mike's, famous line was always fix the family first, right? You got to get your house in order and get things in a proper way. Blended families is a norm. Sorry, it's starting to become that. The more we have no fault divorce, where we have eroded the edges of what relationship dynamics are and what they're about and how people really meet and come together today. It seems that a lot of people are much more temporary than they are for a long term relationship, fruitful relationship at that. And we talk about the kids, and this is another point that I hit because that's what brought up. We talk about the kids, but you know what's so interesting? How many black people are adopting young black boys and young black girls? You know how many young black boys and young black girls are in the foster care system? Do you guys have any clue how many young black boys and young black girls who need a loving, caring, warm home with a warm meal, with a nice clothes on their back and a roof over their head, in a support system for people who care about them and love them, who understands them? I don't see people running towards, to grab one of their own, right, to help adopt them, push them and guide them in their direction and journey in life. He has 8 kids, two of which are adopted, the other 6 biological. That says a lot more about his stride in that sort of dynamic. Mind
Mm-hmm.
you, I'm not defending his lifestyle and how he leads. I'm just pointing out things in terms of how they appear in context, because we're so quick to throw a rock, not knowing that we live in glass houses, right? And we need to do a deeper dive and evaluation in terms of how we view ourselves within the community. And we talk about kids because at times it's F them kids, and then in the other breath is like, well, what about the kids in broken homes and stuff like that? Well, if we really want to save these kids, have one or two yourself, maybe adopt one. Won't we champion around a culture that champions that, right? If we're trying to fix things and we're trying to uplift the foundational erosion of this community, then why we don't start by doing that? Because the kids are our future.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I'm going to retire in like 20 plus years. Somebody needs to replace me in what I do. And I'd rather be people that look like us, right? So if we're going to make such a hard stand on one particular man who might be in a particular type of industry, who might make a particular
Yep.
type of money, let's view this whole thing holistically for all types of men at all different economic and social brackets, you know. And I'll make this one last point before I land. I find it interesting that we tend to kind of lean into celebrities far too often to get our sort of our anecdotal insight how family dynamics not work. And I'm pretty confident that a lot of people, even the people listening here tonight, grew up with a neighbor that was a Mr. Smith, Mr. Rogers, who lived down the street, who was married for 25, 30 years to his wife, who had 2 beautiful kids, who sent them off to college, who was a staple in his community, who goes to his local church, who's an outstanding and pristine individual to learn from and to get mentorship from. But we don't value those individuals because they don't come with the glitz and the glamours and everything else that we sort of quote unquote value today. Again, it goes down to principles, it goes down to value systems. Where is that? Where does that show up? And if it doesn't show up anywhere and we have no pedestal in which we stand on, then why are we demanding all these other things from people when we don't even demand the same requirements for ourselves? So I yield.
Well, if nothing else, I think Dr. Bryant is bringing awareness to people. I think it's making, men, women look at things from a different perspective. So as far as looking at celebrities in a certain way, that's just what's out there now. And those are the people who are being paid attention to.
Yeah, okay. I wanted to add a little bit to one little nuance too. When it comes to these guys like Cam Newton and Nick Cannon and their children, right? I think another thing people are vastly overlooking is, like, if we're talking about family, Nick Cannon's children have more parents, and Cam Newton's kids have more parents than the average child. So if you really think about it, there's more adults contributing to of Nick Cannon's children than, let's say, if a guy with one wife had 8 kids. So if we're going to have a problem with Nick Cannon having his 8 or 12 kids, and you got to have a problem with one man and women have 8 or 12 kids, because for Nick Cannon's 8 or 12 kids, there's 6 people that are taking care of and raising them.
Where'd you get that?
Whereas with a husband and wife, for example, a 2-family household where they might have 8 kids, it's only 2 people raising those 8 kids. So
that's
it's like,
so
if we're going off it logistically, that the outrage doesn't actually make common sense. Logistically, numbers wise, it doesn't make sense, because each of Nick Cannon's children have access to more adults than the average 2-family household has. So technically, those children are more cared for than the average child, because they have more adults that they can turn to for support that are actually their family members, that are actually related to them.
Are they all in the same household? Because
we don't know that. We don't know that, but why are we assuming that they're not? Why are we? My thing is this, right? We see these guys have these families. Why do we make the assumption that their families aren't in order? Like Nick Cannon's baby moms. He got all these baby moms. I haven't heard one of them talk bad about him publicly. I haven't heard one of them say he don't take care of his kids. We haven't heard nothing about Nick Cannon's baby moms.
Did you hear him say himself that he feels guilty about not being able to be in more than one place at the same time? Did you hear him say
that's not, hold on. Yes,
so
I heard him
say
that. Hold on. But that is not because of the amount of kids he has. That's because of his business. That would be the Nick Cannon would have the same problems if he only had 2 kids. His kids still wouldn't see him, because Nick Cannon is a high performer. He owns multiple businesses. He was doing like 3 primetime television shows at once at one point. The dude runs a production company. He's like one of the top execs at Nickelodeon. Like, and he's constantly touring, doing comedy, wilding out. Dude is a
so that's more
man.
important than your children, because I think
I'm not
if you're
saying
a boss and you got all this money,
no. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is though. What I'm saying is no. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is y'all wouldn't put the same pressure on Obama, because I guarantee you his daughters didn't get to see him that much neither. I guarantee you Barack Obama's daughters didn't spend as much. I guarantee you Barack Obama's daughters probably spent less time with him while he was president than Cam Newton's kids spend with Cam Newton. He's playing for 1 season a year. So that's what I'm saying. Like, this is a disingenuous argument, because it's not like we've never heard of high functioning men not having time to be home before. This isn't the only reason y'all care is because he has multiple women. If he had one woman with the same lifestyle and the same amount of kids, no one would be complaining. It's just because it's a black guy with multiple women. It's just because it's a black guy with multiple women. Nobody cares about you having multiple
women. You would have made a bunch of kids with these multiple women.
If Cam Newton had all his kids, if Cam Newton had all his kids with one woman and had the same exact career, nobody would be questioning whether or not his kids are taken care of. Of course not,
because that's the way you do it. That's called a family.
But what I'm saying is, in that situation, it's actually logistically possible that those children are receiving less care. So that's proof to me that y'all are not concerned about the level of care that the children are getting. It's more about policing the way he lives his life. It's more about, we don't like the fact that he's free to live this way. We think he should be living a certain way, even though we have no evidence that this is negatively impacting his children.